Additionally, we again urge all countries, including China, to stop exports to Russia of dual-use goods that contribute to Russia's war industrial base and enable its drone and missile attacks against Ukraine. Beijing's claim to have implemented strong export controls on dual-use goods falls apart in the face of daily recovery of Chinese-produced components in the drones, weapons, and vehicles that Russia uses against Ukraine.
I'd like to respond to the statement by the U.S. representative. As we've pointed out many times in the Council, China did not start the Ukraine crisis, nor is it a party to it. China has never provided lethal weapons to any party to the conflict and has always strictly controlled dual-use materials, including the export of drones. We urge the U.S. to stop shifting blames on the Ukraine issue. The U.S. should be ashamed and disgraced by its own words and deeds.
I now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Assistant Secretary General Miroslav Yensha and Assistant Secretary General Joyce Masuya for your briefings. And I welcome the representative of Ukraine. More than 100 days have now passed since this Council adopted a resolution imploring a swift end to the war and urging a lasting peace between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Since then, there have been some positive developments. UN Security Council Resolution 2774 paved the way for technical talks in Saudi Arabia and bilateral talks in Istanbul, resulting in the return of thousands of prisoners of war. But the progress we've seen has fallen far short of what is needed. Ignoring this Council's call for lasting peace in Resolution 2774, Russia has continued to kill Ukrainian civilians. Russian drones and missiles have struck schools, playgrounds, apartment buildings, and nursing homes. Russia has deployed thousands of DPRK troops to its front lines and sent tens of thousands of Russian soldiers to die on the battlefield just to gain a small amount of ground. Mr. President, colleagues, the war, killing, and destruction must end. As President Trump has repeatedly stated, there is no military solution to this conflict. On July 14th, the President of the United States put Russian President Putin on notice to agree to a peace deal within 50 days. If Russia does not agree within that time frame to stop the attacks, the United States is prepared to take further measures. Additionally, we again urge all countries, including China, to stop exports to Russia of dual-use goods that contribute to Russia's war industrial base and enable its drone and missile attacks against Ukraine. Beijing's claim to have implemented strong export controls on dual-use goods falls apart in the face of daily recovery of Chinese-produced components in the drones, weapons, and vehicles that Russia uses against Ukraine. Mr. President, now is the time for all UN member states to do our part to bring this war to an end. I thank you.
I now give the floor to the representative of China.
President, I thank ASG Yensha and ASG Masuya for their briefings. We've noted that Russia and Ukraine have in recent times continued to implement the consensus reached in previous negotiations and promoted the exchange of prisoners of war and the remains of fallen soldiers. They also held the third round of direct talks a few days ago, in which a new consensus on the continuation of the exchange of prisoners of war and other humanitarian issues was reached. China welcomes these positive developments and calls on the parties concerned to maintain the momentum of the peace talks, continue to build consensus and enhance mutual trust with a view to reaching a comprehensive, lasting, and binding peace agreement. We've also noted that in recent days, Russia and Ukraine have continued to carry out large-scale drone and missile strikes against each other, resulting in heavy casualties and infrastructure damage and destruction. China is deeply concerned and saddened by this, and once again urges the parties to the conflict to show maximum restraint, comply effectively with international humanitarian law, and refrain from attacking civilians and civilian infrastructure under any circumstance. It is imperative that the two sides make joint efforts to de-escalate on the battlefield at an early date. We have further noted that Russia and Ukraine have recently issued statements toward each other about how to restore peace in Europe and achieve a political solution to the crisis. The major parties in the international community have also repeatedly released positive signals on dialogue, negotiation, and ceasefire, and continue to engage in diplomatic efforts for peace talks. China welcomes all efforts towards peace and encourages both Russia and Ukraine to continue to show political will and flexibility, while the international community continue to call for peace, build a consensus for peace, and carry out efforts for peace. All parties should jointly make practical efforts to promote a political solution to the crisis. President, China has always maintained an objective and impartial stance on the Ukraine issue and has been committed to promoting peace talks and political solution. We have been actively carrying out diplomatic mediation in accordance with 4 shoulds proposed by President Xi Jinping while maintaining effective communication with both Russia and Ukraine. We have initiated the establishment of Friends of Peace Group on the Ukrainian crisis with Brazil and other countries in the Global South in order to build greater synergy for a ceasefire and the realization of peace. China will, as always, play a constructive role in the political settlement of the crisis. President, I'd like to respond to the statement by the U.S. representative. As we've pointed out many times in the Council, China did not start the Ukraine crisis, nor is it a party to it. China has never provided lethal weapons to any party to the conflict and has always strictly controlled dual-use materials, including the export of drones. We urge the U.S. to stop shifting blames on the Ukraine issue or creating confrontation, and instead playing a more constructive role in promoting ceasefire and peace talks. What's more, President, I'd like to take this opportunity to say a few more words. This past Tuesday, when the Council held an open debate on the peaceful settlement of disputes, the U.S. representative took advantage of the meeting to attack and accuse China on the South China Sea issue. This past Thursday, when the Council held an open meeting on cooperation between the UN and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the representative of the U.S. once again started its provocation by slandering and smearing China on Xinjiang-related issues. Today, when we are considering the issue of Ukraine, the representative of the U.S. again started to spread false information and lies about China. Within a single week, the U.S. has made groundless accusations at China in the Security Council multiple times. They only prove that what the U.S. cares about is not maintaining international peace and security or promoting the political settlement of war or conflicts, but rather using this council to suppress and attack other countries and engage in political manipulation to serve its own agenda. As a permanent member of the council, the U.S. should be ashamed and disgraced by its own words and deeds. We urge the U.S. to change course at an early date and engage constructively in the work of the Council. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for the statement.